We live with wounds. That much is pretty obvious. But how do we deal with our wounds? Not all that well. The consciousness of being wounded permeates our anxious times. How striking then to be making our way through Lent, fixing our gaze on a wounded body distended on a gibbet, on a cross, and then to affirm, shockingly when you think about it, that this is where the wellspring of hope is founded. For centuries, the Church was very cautious about displaying the wounds Christ sustained. We read about them in the gospel narratives that with great reticence describe the process of crucifixion, the nails through the hands and feet, the spear through the side. But it took centuries for the Church to describe and display that wounding visually in art. Can we fix our eyes on the crucified? This was a long, contested question. It took 5 centuries for the Church to dare to depict that motif. Now we take it for granted that it is the first thing we see when we enter a church. We may have it over our bed or in our kitchen. But I see at work in our society today 2 contradictory tendencies regarding woundedness. The first tendency I might call the fetishization of woundedness, which is about displaying and making everyone see and recognize acquired, inherited, or potentially even imagined wounds, and to display these as markers of identity. This is my wound, this is what makes me who I am. Many such courses of displaying wounds, of bringing wounds to public attention, are grounded in calls for justice, which is a necessary virtue. But we might ask, where is motivational prospect for life if I root my sense of self in attachment to my wound, displaces aspirations to healing with affirmations of self-righteousness, locking us in a perversely self-satisfied despair? The other tendency is an effort to eliminate wounds or to keep them out of sight. The coexistence of these 2 trends lead to considerable clashes in the public square and sometimes clashes in our own minds and our own consciousness, our own heart. So meditation on Christ's wounds is more than devout exercise. Meditation on Christ's wound is constructive revolt against the psychological fallacy of cultivating hopelessness, of yielding to despair. Christ's wounds open a different dimension, a dimension enabling us to lament without suffocating in our lamentation, being opened instead to a defining mark of the Christian condition, which is compassion, which is not just sentiment, but a way of understanding the world and understanding self. And what is more, which is an ecstatic movement that draws me out of myself to weep before and to hope before the woundedness of another. An enthusiasm in displaying Christ's wounds also speaks of the certainty, based on Christ's representative precedent, that wounds can be healed. Wounds can even become sources of healing. The gospel account of Christ's resurrection is profoundly subversive, not only in proclaiming the real possibility of healing. The gospel account shows wounds not just done away with, but rendered glorious, as we see in so many of the great high medieval representations of Christ, where the blood marks of Christ's hands and feet and side are represented as flowers, as the flourishing of the new creation. The gospel account of Christ's appearances after the resurrection show him still carrying the wounds, but his woundedness becomes a way of enlightenment and of healing for others. The source of Christian hope is not pleasant, pious platitude. The source of Christian hope is the conviction that a transforming benevolence has saturated human suffering, even in its most extreme manifestations, is saturating it now, reaching right into the very depths of hell, and that no desolation therefore is final, and that even before extremes of desolation, we can and must nurture hope